Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of the universe, this is Roster Watch. My name is Alex Dunlap. I'm joined by Cody Carpentier. And today, Cody Carpentier, we have out a new mock draft from Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some news and notes around the NFL and fantasy football. We also have a new mock draft out from Lance Zierlein, mock draft 3.0, which has Shadur Sanders falling. Also, some interesting reporting that I wanted to bring up with you from Diana Rossini from her show Scoop City that is starting to kind of get out there on the X spaces and stuff like that. But I wanted to start out with this Xavier Legette report that we had and kind of what's going on with the Panthers. What is it about Legette that you wanted to bring up here to start the show?
Well, they asked Dave Canales down there at the owners' meetings in Miami about, or Palm, whatever, wherever it's at, down there in South Florida, basically kind of about the offensive weapons and what they had, because it's Legette, Coker, Mingo's obviously gone now in Dallas. They re-signed Adam Thielen. We heard some Jatavian Sanders buzz this last winter into the spring. They re-signed Tommy Tremble. Like, it's not exactly the creme de la creme at the receiving room. And Canales basically said, you got a guy that's 6'2.5", 225 pounds, runs a 4.3. He's a playmaker. It's on film. So let's start there. Let's take the next step with him. I'm going to give the coaches all the opportunity in the world to help him take that next step. Now, that all sounds good, but I feel like if you watch the guy, he's not like, I feel like he was comped a little bit to, like a DK Metcalf type of a player. And he was injured quite a bit in college. And those kind of reared their head up this last year. And it was kind of, for me, I love Legette. I think he's a bona fide dog. But like the pro day, I went to the pro day and he had like a Quentin Johnson type pro day for me. And I was like, man, I don't know. I know how you feel like about the Quentin Johnson thing, because for me, it's like, as much as I try to push, and I actually like Xavier Legette, but it's like, as much as you have that right there, because you saw it with your own eyes, like him struggle during games at times with drops and get injured and stuff. It's really tough to get through that, but he's got the prototype to be a full-blown X in that offense. I'm just not sure. They're at a very important point in the Carolina Panthers progression on offense with Bryce Young, with Canales in year 2. They got a good backfield in Chuba Hubbard, and they spent all that money on the offensive line. I think it's one of the top 5 highest salaried offensive lines in football right now. Like, they're at a very tumultuous spot here, and Legette kind of just has to hit. And I just don't know if this is him just saying, yep, he's our number one, or if it's kind of like, you better take that next step because we're bringing somebody else in here to compete with you because we have to.
I don't know who they can bring in to compete. Like, are we talking about just acquisitions through the draft? Because
I'm talking about target hogs. I'm talking about bringing in like a guy with upside. I'm talking about Luther Burden. I'm talking about
it's not going to happen.
Why?
Because the Carolina Canales was on there with, I forgot what, gosh, was it Diana Rossini? It might have been Kay Adams.
Probably Kay Adams. Kay Adams was down there for the whole week.
So it was like, we've heard from people, as far as from people around the Panthers, from people who actually have been around players that are actually Panthers players over the course of the last 3 weeks, that there are Panthers players saying, we're going to take an edge rusher at 8, and we're basically going to draft defense with the rest of our picks. That was, and so that's why I've always thought at 8, I've been seeing Jalen Walker slide in these drafts and stuff. And, sometimes he goes 6 to the Raiders and stuff. And, it's a really wide spread for him. And some you see him dropping all the way into the 20s, right? I'm like, man, I think that kind of Jalen Walker is the guy there for them that I've penciled in around 8. I know that some people, whenever he goes earlier than that, you see often mocked as, his teammate Mikael Williams going there. And I think that that's spot on. I do think that they're going to go edge there. And I feel like it's going to be a whole lot of defense for the Panthers this year. And Kay Adams was sort of pushing him. And I forget exactly how it went, but I got the feeling that he was like, yada, 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 that's all good. But, we got to get the defense fixed, And so when you look at the picks that the Panthers have this year, they pick what? Okay, so they pick, of course, we know that they pick 8. They
57.
have 57, which is their second rounder that they got from the Rams. And then they have 74. And then they have a bunch of picks like 111, 114. They have a bunch of picks through the fourth and fifth round. They have 5 picks through the fourth and fifth. And then they have their 7th rounder. So decent number of picks, but dude, find me a wide receiver that's going to be going in the kind of, Kyle Williams, Keandre Lambert-Smith. You know what I mean?
Keandre
Jalen
Lambert-Smith is
Lane.
an interesting piece. Lambert-Smith would be pretty solid.
Is that a target hog that's just gonna come in and render a first round pick like Xavier Legette? Useless. But here's the thing: Xavier Legette was useless last season as far as being a fantasy asset. He just was. But I do feel like Legette, Thielen, and Coker to some degree, however much you want to buy into the Panthers offense, their passing offense, all those guys to some degree, I feel like are somewhat protected. It's kind of like we were talking about before we got on the show with the Panthers, with them bringing back Raheem Blackshear.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like to a certain degree that protects, again, for Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. The main difference is with the structure of this rookie class, right? So if we're talking about guys who can come in and hurt existing veterans or existing players that are in good spots, the Chuba Hubbards, the Rico Dowdles of the world. Jonathan Brooks, I don't think even plays next year. So, that would only be for a dynasty discussion. But the real worry that you have is getting into the 4th and the 5th round, and these teams that have, what's the team that's got 3 5th round picks? I'm trying to maybe the Cowboys. Yeah, Niners. You really worry about those situations, thinking like, man, even if they get to the 5th round and there's like a Taj Brooks hanging around, or there's like, there's, you name it, a Montrell Johnson or even like a Rocket Sanders, these kinds of guys, Woody Marks, Damian Martinez. These are the kind of guys that could come in and be an absolute problem still for you, and they're going to be available there at that point. I don't think that. I don't think that there's a wide receiver of consequence that's going to be available past the first, one that's going to come in you're super worried about. Not even like a Torrey Horton or a Jalen Noel or a Jaden Higgins or something. Like I
don't think that those guys. I think all 3 of those guys could compete with.
No, I do. That's what I'm saying. That like even though like I put that level of like they're. By the time that they have to say, all right, we feel like we're good on defense, we can start doing some things on offense here, where in our passing game, it's like this whole thing where people are there have been some of these things where people have talked about sending Tyler Warren to the Panthers. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, there's no way, It's like it's not just because Jatavian Sanders is there and he exists, and it's not a no way on the like wide receiver during those key picks just because Xavier Lee gets there and he exists and he has first round draft capital, and the sunk cost fallacy or not, like it comes into play. And they did find what seems to be like a relative, sleeper kind of hit with Jalen Coker. I mean, you might not think he's that great, but obviously for,
him continuing to learn from Thielen's still going to be there.
Yeah.
I think Coker can really become, a premium number 2 in an offense.
So, well, I guess I guess what I'm saying here is like, I don't believe Canales that he thinks that, he's super confident in Xavier Legette. But I think he's in a spot where he's like, well, we're going to have to roll with him. Of course, we're going to give him every opportunity. And I think they probably like him. I like him. Who doesn't like a guy that rides around town with his family on their new horses and all this stuff? I mean, he's a super fun dude. I'm sure he's really hard, he's really hard not to like. I enjoyed being around him and getting to talk to him at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's a neat, interesting, and funny guy. He's got a really distinctive voice.
And he's a dog, man. He's from South Carolina.
Yeah. But Yeah, I hope he does well, and I feel like he's going to have opportunity to do well because this is a down wide receiver class. I don't see anything happening where they're going to be able to bring in somebody that. Can you look at the rookies and say, like, is there one that could come in and really hurt him? Maybe like something maybe out of the blue, like an Isaac Tesla or
That
something.
so, to be honest with you, that's the name that I was looking at was Isaac Tesla, just because of his size and athleticism. And he played in the SEC. Like I don't think you have to probably squint a little bit, but I don't think you have to squint extremely hard to visualize like a Tesla coming in there and being a very similar athlete, very similar size, and potentially, surpassing I don't think you have to really I don't have to twist my head very hard to do that. Anybody really past that, like I think the thing that kind of protects him a little bit is the redundancy that like some of these guys bring in, which is that they're very similar to like a Coker and a Thielen. You think about Restrepo, you think about Nick Nash, you think about I think even Ricky White to a certain extent, Ty Felton, I like him a lot. Jim DK sounds like the NFL likes him quite a bit from Florida. I don't. Pat Bryant, just
What
a
is
lot of
all
these
this
guys.
love about Chim?
Jim, I don't
Is it
know,
just because
man.
he ran fast?
I don't know, dude. I hope he's
You
not
watch
the one
him?
that's like I hope he's not the one that is like the last couple years you get like the Alec Pierce corollary thing at the Senior Bowl, and it's like nobody likes him, but like one or two people. And then he's the guy that comes in second. You're like, what the hell? He just second round pick. What are you talking about? It's like Jim DK did not have a good pre-draft process, not to put anything down on him. He ran a 4.34, so you got to respect that. But more so my take was that like a lot of these guys, they're sort of redundant. The wild card, I guess, would be Savion Williams, but he's not a sound route runner at all. It'd be an interesting fit in
Yeah, but
Carolina.
he is a get a ball. He is the kind of
Yeah.
he's the same kind of just physical
Yeah.
um, presence as him. And I think the other one that you kind of glossed over Nick Nash, but and I realize
The
Nick Nash has
redundancy
his
of it.
hive. You saw him at the Shrine Bowl, so I'll defer to you on him. You don't think he's any good.
No,
I
no,
kind of
I think he's good. I just don't think he's like he's not he didn't impress to the level like Coker did a year ago. And Coker's coming from Holy Cross. It's like Nick Nash is fine. He is a, like a quintessential sort of concoction of the Coker and Thielen thing where it's like very small hands, very small features.
I didn't realize 8 3/4 inch hands.
Yeah.
That's not great.
His features were all small. Like I expected this guy to be much longer, much bigger, and I just like saw him in person. I was like, man, he's a nice football player. He's a nice route runner, but his features were just like all really, I don't know what the word to be, underdeveloped or like very youthful. Like it's just not. I was like, man, he doesn't look like a grown man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, and also, I mean, he's also the is he the oldest in this class? I guess if you
Um,
consider so Kyron Lacey is still in the class, I guess. So he's older. Um, looks like
Brew McCoy.
he's not. He's a no, because he was born right there at the end of 2000. Um, the only guys, Zachary Franklin from Illinois and Andrew Armstrong
No,
are.
you got Brew McCoy Jr.
Oh, Brew. Yeah, all right, Brew. Yeah, Brew might be the oldest. But yeah, so you're looking at a 25-year-old rookie there with Nick Nash from San Jose State. So the really good product. If you were just to base it all on just like not even really game film, but just on the YouTube highlights, you know what I mean? You could find yourself easily falling in love with Nick Nash and saying, I'm trying to just think of guys where you could squint and think about because a late round or later round 4 or later. Because if you just look,
What about Alec Amaner? Amaner's one that was not on the list of 13 guys that McShay said would go in the first 3 rounds.
he's not. But dude, dude, is once Carolina gets to pick 111, their fourth pick, and 114, their fifth pick, like that's so. I feel like that's still prime territory to be taking some of these. Like it's a really good deep defensive line class. It's none of the premier edge rushers are going to be around there, but they're going to be some of these guys that they're going to be able to take a look at. Certainly some good inside linebackers, safeties. So I j- I just I think that the time I don't think that they're going to be looking at wide receiver or anything like this. So what, till fifth round? 140?
I just don't know if I believe that.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
believe with this
Dude, they're
class.
going defense. We've just heard. I've heard it too much, man.
I
Like,
understand. But again, you have how many picks they got? 9?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, yeah, I think 9.
It says at the top 9.
9.
If you take your corner or your edge rusher at 8, 57, you come back, you take the opposite. I think this class is very strong at those. I think it's pretty solid the first 2 rounds at corner.
If they go offense, they're going to take an interior offensive lineman. They're not taking a wide receiver.
Why are they taking an interior offensive lineman?
I mean,
They've just got $100 trillion into the offensive line with Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt and Austin Corbett.
oh right.
I think if they get,
Why did I have interior offensive line written down?
I don't know. But I corner.
Let me see why I had that.
I love the Jalen Walker Michael thing at 8. I do. But I think corner is also a question. I think Jade's kind of a wild card right there. Jade Barron from Texas is sort of a wild card at 8. And if they went the corner out at 8, you're going edge at 57 with Savion Jones from LSU, Nick Scorton if he falls that far. One of these guys like this, right? It's a pretty deep class at edge as well as it is on the interior defensive line. I think 74 is a wild card spot. I don't think Luther Burden will fall to 57. That was kind of my brain thought there. But also wouldn't be shocked if Burden did start falling and he ends up falling to, let's say, like 40, 41, 42. Carolina starts thinking, well, this would be a sick, third piece in this offense that could really elevate us. And you run out Coker, Burden, and Leggett for the next 5-6 years, because Thielen can play, but he's kind of getting up there into that late career Fitzgerald spot, right? So he can't play every single snap of the game. And if you trade it up from 57 to like 45, 46 to get Luther Burden, like I don't think that's out of the question. You can't actually add 9 defenders to this roster. It's just not feasible.
I was looking, and in the team needs sheet, we hadn't updated the for the March 8th re-signing of Austin Corbett. So I just changed that. That's why I thought it was. So I thought they might still go interior offensive line. So yeah, I take that back on that. I mean, it makes sense. They're not going to get their big Cody. Like, do you want to put a Jersey Mike's on this that they don't end up with one of these wide receivers that they're not going to. So just look at our rankings and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are not going to get a top 10 wide receiver in our cumulative rankings between me, you, and Trash Man.
No, that's a stupid bet.
And this is it. What?
That's a stupid bet. I don't think they're going to draft any of those guys.
Okay, well, but I don't think that any of the other ones are guys who were going to come in and pose any real threat to Xavier Leggett. I don't even think Xavier Leggett is that good.
I think Besh, A Manor, Royals, Savion. I mean, those guys are not in our top 10, and they're, I think, very much in barking distance in that 3rd or 4th pick.
Fair enough. We'll see what happens. I don't see it. I don't see it. I think
no Jersey
they're gonna have to address this later.
Keep it on Leggett for just one more minute. So you updated the best ball cheat sheet. I'm just scrolling down to look at where Leggett's at, because if we look at Leggett and say, yep, he's the number 1 in that offense, we think he's going to take a step forward. He's 6'2", 220.
I'm not sure he's going to take a step forward.
I'm just saying hypothetically, if they're saying they believe he might take a step forward, he's going off right now at wide receiver 64 on Underdog. And it looks like he's jumped up 8 spots in ADP over the last month. According to the 444 ADP change tool, he's just ahead of Jaden Higgins. He's actually 2 spots ahead of Jalen Coker, who's wide receiver 66, Adam Thielen, wide receiver 67. So all the Carolina guys kind of bunched in there right now. Is that sort of how we have him? Is that sort of how you view him?
I can't believe this, but I guess we're technically 3 spots ahead of ADP on Xavier Leggett somehow.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's probably right.
It's probably right. I mean, it's like we said, like I just said, I'm not that confident I'm not that confident in the whole thing, but I think there's enough to where you can say, okay, I mean,
There's some value.
he's obviously a guy that they coveted. It's obviously coming into year 2 with Canales. We obviously saw everything with Bryce last year. He's protected to some degree, even if you think that one of the. I think that despite the fact that you think he's not quite as protected as I do, you think he's relatively protected, right? And so,
Who? Xavier?
yeah,
I, I would say
relatively
you think he's more protected than I do.
right.
You think there's no way he's going to get a draft pick in the first 3 rounds at wide receiver. I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
chance.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But I think that you think he's at least relatively protected based on
Sure.
what we
Yeah.
think Carolina is going to
Yeah.
be. So
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to be a little bit high on ADP, but not be anything too crazy about it.
And he's a typical guy that I would like in best ball too. Like if this offense takes a step forward and grows, like he's definitely got some best ball cuts in his profile.
It's funny how that works. That Leggett was somebody who I hadn't even really thought about too much strategic positioning of him, but it's just like the way that things come together. It's just like you end up just where you end up, and it turns out where it's maybe a little bit high on the guy. The other topic I wanted to talk about, Cody, was this report from Diana Rossini, and I found it super interesting that something could fly in the absolute face. It's like once you think you know something about the NFL draft and you're coming into the weeks of it, somebody comes in and throws in a report that you know what I mean? Where it's just
Yep.
like where you're just like, oh,
All
do I
right.
need to rethink the whole way I'm looking at this? And we're going to get into the mock draft here in just 1 second from The Athletic, because I think that this will kind of lead into that discussion, right? But the report from Diana Rossini is that the Titans, so the Titans haven't fully committed to Cam Ward. Like she said that they're not convicted on him. She said it's an organization that they are trying to completely revamp everything, and they might not be completely. I mean, if they can get a lot for that pick, they can do a whole lot, man. You know what I mean? And they have a bunch of needs across the whole roster. And if you're not completely in love with the guy, like it's almost like Borgonzi. If you draft Cam Ward, it almost like to some degree kind of starts the clock on you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you just go and you're like, no, we're gonna trade back to whatever, if it opened up like that, I mean, could you just trade with the Giants or the Browns? Pick up that pick and take it. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, pick up some other. I don't know exactly what you probably do. You get a 1 next year for only moving up that far, and getting a 1 next year. Do you also get a? I don't have a chart value chart pulled up, so I don't know what it would take to move up from 2 or from 3 to 1. Or might there be some other weird suitor? Might the Saints love trading up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get somebody to trade up from what Saints are 9. You get somebody to trade up from 9. That's a steeper price.
I mean, if they traded up from 9 to 1, you might as well, put the paper bags back on your head, because they don't have money right now, let alone you give up all that draft assets. I think that'd be a miserable move by the New Orleans Saints, but I get what you're saying though.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to think of people that might really, really covet Ward. It feels like
the Browns, right?
It feels like the Browns would want him.
And this, to be honest with you, the conversation here, I can sort of get it. Two things come to my mind. One is the Browns haven't made a move yet at quarterback, so maybe they are not as dumb as we all think they are or thought they have been, in that they've kept their rod in that pond to this point, and they're still like, hey man, there's a chance. We're not going to go out and get Kirk today. We're not going to go and be heavy on Russ. We're not going to go be heavy on Aaron Rodgers, because we think there's still a chance. We're going to keep our rod in the water. And so there's that. And then the other side is I wonder because you remember after that Miami Pro Day last Monday, so it was like 10 days ago now when we're recording this. The hours later, the Giants go out and sign Russ, and everything seems to be Cam Ward to the Titans, locked up, put the key in the garbage. Do you think that maybe at that point that was true? And then they kind of were like, all right, we're done on our kind of first round evaluations. We know where we're at. And now April turns the marker, and it's like, do you think Borgonzi went back and was like, all right, let me look at this 2026 class? And he sees like Drew Aller's arm. He sees Cade Klubnik, his efficiency growth this past year and his rushing, and he sees Garrett Nussmeier, and he's like,
Nussmeier.
God, that's a whole different class, man.
Did Sellers come out next year?
Yeah.
Oh, you see Lenora Sellers. Like, yeah, man. I'm just like,
he sees next year and he goes, eh.
And then the year after, when you get Arch and Lagway and stuff, like Nico. I mean,
I think Nico potentially next year. Nico probably next year.
Yeah. I think, yeah. So Nico could come out next year.
That class next year could be right back to. I mean, I'm not going to say this or mark it on official paper, but next year's class could hypothetically grow into being similar to last year's.
I don't
not
think
that
be as good as
I don't currently believe you'll get 6 quarterbacks in the top 15, but we just listed off 6 players that if they take the right steps forward, they could all be in the first round.
The big ifs, right?
Big ifs. Big ifs.
And you know what? This time next year, we could be talking about something like the block cinch overall #1 pick, John Mateer. Or so like it's like there's still so much there's still a whole college football season for us to really enjoy and watch and just.
But that's more so my thought is like,
but,
you think Borgonzi could have just went back and looked and been like, man, this class. I mean, we know this class is underwhelming, but I can get my guy Abdul Carter, get my guy Travis Hunter right here. Give Will Levis one more year.
To me, it honestly makes more sense. It makes more sense
to give Will Levis one more season.
We've totally fallen in love with Cam Ward, who like. And you've watched a ton of Cam Ward. We've all watched a ton of Cam Ward. I mean, I've sort of just grudgingly sort of come to think like, yeah, he's good and he's the best quarterback in this draft. And when you're good and you're the best quarterback in the draft, and it's a team picking at 1, and it's a quarterback needy team. Like, it's not bad for that team to take that quarterback at 1, and it's not necessarily even that bad for that team to allow themselves to fall in love with that guy.
Yep.
But I do think if I was in Borgonzi's shoes, I would be like, all right, am I going to start the clock on my time here in Tennessee with this guy? Because I could start the clock with a home run, with just setting the table, getting everything all set for when we do bring in our guy, probably in 2026, and put him in a better position to win. And that's when my clock starts. From a purely selfish and career-oriented standpoint, I think that's what I would do. With that said, both of these mock drafts today, Cody, both Lance Zierlein and Bruce Feldman over at The Athletic have Cam Ward going at #1 to the Tennessee Titans, and really no super, it's kind of like the chalk. It's the chalky stuff that's happened with these. With I know Bruce Feldman has Shedeur going at number 2, or no? Does he have it even going? No, he has him Shedeur going at 3 to the Giants. He has Abdul Carter matching up there with Myles Garrett. But what do we have up here? Oh, last year. So this is last.
Feldman. This is Feldman's this year and Feldman's last year.
Okay, so I don't know. What are your thoughts on how this goes? And then, of course, I think that the big theme from Lance Zierlein's is the major Shedeur Sanders fall all the way to your Vikings at pick 24, who I've said the whole time that in my mock I'm planning on. I've been just thinking about the idea of that being a trade up spot if there is a quarterback available. In my mind, though, that had always been the Jackson Dart trade up spot if Dart gets past Pittsburgh. Now Lance has Shedeur Sanders falling all the way to 24, where I believe Cleveland trades back up, and I think that means that they're going to they ended up going in this one, he goes Abdul Carter. So that's not quite the splashy take Travis Hunter and then trade up for Shedeur later and pair those guys back up, which would be just a real headline stealer. But get Abdul Carter, get Shedeur Sanders. I don't know, man. I thought those were what are some of your big takeaways from these two mocks? Like anything that stood out to you? There's a couple
Well,
things that have stood out to me that have started to become really, really, really popular landing spots for guys that I don't understand. But I'd like to hear some of your thoughts.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't even read through this whole Feldman mock yet. I told you before we hopped on that when I saw it drop, I went back to last year's mock because I remembered it was pretty solid at the top. And I know it was quarterback heavy, but Feldman nailed the top four, and that was having Williams, Daniels to Washington, Drake made it New England, and then he had to trade up for the Vikings to get JJ McCarthy, and he nailed it. So then I came back to this year's and I looked at it, and it was just like you just said, it was Cam Ward to Titans, Abdul Carter to the Browns, Shedeur to the Giants, and then Travis to the Patriots. And that's kind of where I've been the last week. I'm working on a mock right now. Hopefully it's going to come up probably Thursday or Friday. And that's where I was at. I was with those four guys in the top. I haven't scrolled past, admittedly, in either one of these mocks outside the top four.
Okay. Well, you're in for some surprises. I think one of the things that keeps sticking out to me is there's always the Ashton Genty stuff, the Raiders, the Bears, all this stuff, right? The conversation there around him. There is the interesting thing though to me, just from skill players, is what Tyler Warren. It feels like Tyler Warren now. It's like is it 14 to the Colts? Colts are 14, right? It's like, man,
Yeah.
it's like everybody's putting Tyler Warren there. How do you feel about that as a landing spot for Dynasty, and just how you think his career will pan out?
I like it. I like him there more than I like Colston Loveland there for some reason.
Well, I think I know why. It's because you can manufacture touches a lot more easily in an offense with a bad quarterback for Tyler Warren than you can for Colston Loveland, who's a seam stretcher and a guy that can, the guy that the quarterback needs good timing with.
So you can very easily tie that then to Justin Fields, the same thing with the Jets, right? Like those have been the two heavy landing spots. It's Jets and Colts. And then
Yeah,
there's been this little like salt sprinkle of like the Bears.
right. Which I
don't get it.
I can't. I mean, I don't hate it because Tyler Warren's really good, but yeah, I don't get. I think the Jets make sense simply because I think is Jeremy Ruckert the only tight end that they have on contract?
Didn't they just? No. Who's the other one they got? One more guy, Stone Smart, maybe.
Oh, okay. I forgot about. Okay, well, they obviously they still need tight end help.
And Zach Kuntz from last year, but I mean he's cuttable. Yeah, I mean this is a.
How about this other one? Do both of these guys have Mike Green going to the Bengals?
Really?
Do they both have him?
Yep.
Dude, I'm starting to see that in basically every mock. Why?
You said they wanted go. Remember, we had this conversation a week ago. You were like, "Why don't they go offensive line?" And I just think it's because they've spent a lot on the offense, and I think they need to make sure that those edge rushers are solid. And losing one, potentially losing a second this next year, really can put you in a spot, especially in a class like this that has depth, and you're just kind of in an awkward spot where you don't really get the choice at the top of this draft to get one of the elite edge rushers. Mike Green has traits to be one, but it makes sense. I probably wouldn't be my first choice, but I get it. I get why they're going edge. Same conversation we had a couple weeks ago.
Do you think that Trey Hendrickson's going to get moved during the draft? That's what Lance is saying. It won't be a shock.
I didn't even read that. That would shock the hell out of me.
I mean, I don't know if that's what's kind of going into all this Mike Green stuff. And look, I understand that Mike Green is just like, what did he have? That's just the ridiculous. Was it the 3-cone that was so good, or the short shuttle? One of those change of direction drills was super good. Do you have combine IQ pulled up?
6.853 cone.
Okay, so that was it. But
8.5-inch hands. Holy hell! I didn't realize
what?
that. Only 8.5-inch hands.
And just if great, I would say, great senior. Was it a great Senior Bowl week? Very good.
Is he the one that dunked on Josh Connerly?
Oh man, I
think it was.
can't say that I remember about Connerly. I'm just
Mike
trying. I
Green.
want to go back, like whether he was on our all. I'm not sure if he was on our all Senior Bowl roster.
Yeah, this was this one.
Which one?
I'll show you.
Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, can you see it? It's a tweet.
Yeah, but can you play it again?
It'll restart.
Oh yeah, I remember. So that was Mike Green. All right, so for the people on the podcast who aren't watching on YouTube, that was Mike Green, who's a little bit not undersized. I think he's like 250 or something like that. But putting Josh Connerly, who's a guy with really really good feet, an offensive tackle with really good feet, but
just caught him.
But he's like, there are questions about his like play strength, and it's one of these things where he just kind of gets him underneath the right underneath the chin strap and just man puts him puts him in the dirt for sure there on that one. Here, so the all Senior Bowl roster, I'm trying to find it. Mike Green had to be on here, didn't he? If not, that might have been a little bit of a no. We didn't put him on here. We put Shamar Stewart, Deion Walker, Barron Sorrell, and Kyle Kennard. So maybe not as good a Senior Bowl as I kind of remember, but certainly very, very productive at Marshall. There were questions about him where he has off-field stuff that's like pretty concerning off-field accusations from both high school and college, and those are allegations. Who knows? But we've seen that the Bengals have been able to overlook those kinds of things and kind of take the public scrutiny in the case of Joe Mixons of the world and stuff like that. So
Pac-Man, Vontez.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It's I find it interesting that we keep seeing Mike Green go here. One other thing I'm noticing, Cody, is that Walter Nolan falling out of is he falling out of favor?
Was he even in the first round for Lance?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I've just been seeing I've been seeing a whole lot more Derek Harmon than I've been seeing Walter Nolan recently in these updated mocks.
Walter, he did not have. He says Philly needs to restock its D-line. Ole Miss, Walter Nolan would be a good fit here at 37. Says this is from Bruce Feldman, but he gave him Jordan Birch at 37. He added in the Eagles pick here.
How many picks deep does Feldman go?
Well, he just did round one, but then he just added in because he traded the Raiders up to 32 to get Igbuka with the Eagles. So he wanted to make sure every team got a pick here. So the Rams got 33 with Azariah Thomas, and the Eagles had 37 with Jordan Birch. But yeah, so he's got Walter Nolan in that second round conversation. Looks like he did not have him in round one, nor did Lance.
And it's like draft is a flat circle. We're starting to see more and more of it felt like for a while there, Kenneth Grant was falling out of the first rounds of these things for some time there. It feels like now he's starting to be a guy who creeps back up here into the 20s or the 30 there for Bruce Feldman.
Look at Lance. He got him at 13.
Yeah. It's just, it's super, super wild. Travion Henderson, is he just not going to go first round?
I guess, man. I guess. I've started to, as we've gotten closer, kind of like you mentioned, like the flat circle thing's kind of coming around. There's a lot more of these offensive linemen. I think Josh Connerly, the edge rushers, James Pierce, Walter Nolan, for example, Scorton, you see here at 28. I think Scorton's interesting. Read some notes right here. He's a better player than Stewart, another SEC offensive line coach said. He plays the run very well, got really good pass rush skills with a lot of change-ups. I read also, we both obviously work at Orange Bloods. I read earlier, I think it was yesterday when I was doing my behind the enemy line stuff, and it was that the people from the Aggies had a pro day recap saying how Scorton played like 275 pounds this year. and then he came in for the pro day at like 255 or something.
Oh,
And they're like, he looks so much better at 250s, which is where he played at Purdue. And they like put all this weight on him at A&M, and the stats kind of went down. So I'll be interested to see what that kind of looks like. But you remember, I mean, coming into the season, he was looked at as a very high end pick, like, top 20 pick. And he played with Shamar Turner and all these guys. And now he's back at a 250. I'll be very interested to see kind of what comes of that in the end. But I think he's definitely in the conversation as well.
I wanted to talk about, before we get out of here, can we talk about Joe Milton? Just like I just saw this creep up on X. So, but I want to keep the draft stuff for right now, but I do want to talk about Milton. So just remind me of that before we get out. Because I never want to take the opportunity to not talk about Bazooka Joe. As far as far as the Omari and Hampton, Ashton Genty stuff, is there any way that we see both of those guys go top 10 like we've seen, or top 12 like we've seen in so many of these mocks?
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that.
You're not buying that an NFL team would choose to build that way.
Correct. And the thing is, it has to be the Bears
or the Cowboys or the Raiders.
What'd you say? Top 10 or 12? You say top 12?
And there's some talk of Saints with Genty if he were to fall.
Again, I get that. I get that because I think it allows you to move on from Kamara and Kamara's massive contract. So I could be sold on the Saints thing. My problem with even thinking about two backs in the top 12 is that I have trouble sometimes going through this thing and getting Genty on a team in the top 12, because I get to a team and I go like I've told you 100 times, and I've told Theo, because Theo tried to tell me like, well, dude, you got to be looking at like the Patriots and the Jags. And I'm like, brother, no. Like, you have to go Will Campbell. You have to go Banks. You have to go Hunter. You have to go Membu. You have to go Mason Graham. You got to go Jahdae Barron. You have to take these players at these positions that, I understand Genty can change a game, but the positional strength that these tackles have, that these edge rushers have, that these defensive tackles have, comparatively to the rest of the draft. Whereas like the rest of the draft is really good at D tackle. It's fine at offensive tackle. It drops off a little bit at corner. At running back, this isn't a hot take. It's not that massive of a drop off from Genty in the top 10 to getting a Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins in the top 10 of the second round. It's not that big of a drop off. It's not as big of a drop off as it is from going a Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, and Armand Membu down to a Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. It's not that big, or it's not as big of a drop off as it is for a team that's looking at a Will Johnson or a Jahdae Barron.
What about what about like all right? But what about like a Jalen Walker to a Ezraku or something?
I think Ezraku probably ends up going in the first round, but I think the point's still there. Like, I don't think Ezraku's in the same conversation. I think you're looking like, if you look at the second round, you say, all right, well, we don't have to do this now. We can come back in the second round. We can come back and get Landon Jackson.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
like, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's at that position, at that running back position with Genty and Hampton. Like, we've seen teams do this. We've seen,
but I think what Theo would say to you though in that case is he'd be like, all right, Ashton Genty and Walter Nolan, or if you're the Jaguars, say, and I don't, do they still have their early second round pick? It doesn't matter. Just for this, it's like any team up there,
conversation,
right?
Yeah.
The Ashton Genty, Walter Nolan, or Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins.
Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins.
What, like 10 out of 10 times?
Probably 6 or 7.
So what I'm saying is there are some where you got to remember Genty's good. There are some where you might be able to thread the needle there and have it be pretty close. But I think it's probably think you're safer erring on the side of,
I don't think it's gonna happen.
just developing bedrock, absolutely essential key priority positions. And those are of course all based around the quarterback, and that's the actual quarterback himself. That's the guys on the bookends protecting the quarterback, the guys on the bookends who are chasing after the quarterback, the guys who are catching passes from the quarterback, and the guys on the back end who are defending those players catching passes from the quarterback.
And that's all to say both of those mocks we just read have Hampton and Genty literally in the top 12. What do you think about Joe Milton?
Is he worth a third-round pick or something, a fourth-round pick? They're apparently they're getting a bunch of calls from about the New England Patriots, or it's in their best interest to kind of put it out there. But he did have the monster Week 18 game last year, and it was Jeremy Fowler was saying that the Cowboys were interested in him.
Oh gosh,
as
the Cowboys pay a third-round pick.
But apparently he's saying that Milton was saying, and this is the report from Mass Live, and he's saying he'd prefer to be on a roster that best gives him a chance to compete for a starting job. So that wouldn't be the Cowboys. What do you think that? Like, what would you?
Dude, you know what?
Is Bazooka Joe like? Is he might Bazooka Joe be entering the fray here as far as the quarterback landscape as early as 2025?
You know the perfect spot for Bazooka Joe is, right?
You got to tell me.
Dude. Tom Brady managing the Las Vegas Raiders right now, basically pulling all the strings. He's gonna go to New England, talk to old Bobby Kraft, talk to old Mike Vrabel, and say, "Hey, you're not gonna play this guy. Just here's a fourth-round pick, third-round pick, whatever it is. Send him my way. Send him out here. I don't want to spend a draft pick on a quarterback. This class sucks. We got Geno. We'll give Joe a chance. I'll bring Joe along. Joe Milton, Las Vegas Raider."
This is Anthony Richardson. You're listening to RosterWatch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to RosterWatch.